All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring how tiny, everyday blunders can cascade into absolutely unimaginable disasters. You know, we all mess up. But today, we're looking at mistakes on a scale so massive, they're going to make your dropped iPhone or that little fender bender seem like absolute pennies.
Seriously, take a second and think about it. What is the absolutely most expensive mistake you've ever made? Maybe you accidentally knocked over a flat-screen TV or backed your car into a mailbox. It stings, right? Well, whatever your goof-up was, get ready to feel a whole lot better about yourself, because we're about to look at historical errors that cost millions, billions, and literally altered landscapes.
Here's our agenda for today's explainer. First, the cost of a typo. Second, massive maritime mishaps. Third, ignoring the warning signs. And finally, explosive negligence. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The cost of a typo. Everyday errors, massive costs.
It's honestly amazing how a simple slipped finger on a keyboard, something we all do every single day, can lead to massive financial losses. Let's start with a classic eBay blunder from back in 2007. So a seller named Collector Don listed an incredibly rare bottle of Allsop's Arctic Ale. This stuff was brewed specifically for an 1852 polar voyage, and it even had a certified 1919 note. Pretty cool, right? But Collector Don missed the letter P in Allsop's. Because the search engine couldn't handle the misspelling, the listing only got 2 bids, selling to a buyer going by V000 score for a pitiful $304. Well, that savvy buyer turned right around, relisted it with the correct spelling less than 2 months later, and got 157 bids in just 10 days. The final price? A mind-boggling $503,000. That, my friends, is a $500,000 missing letter.
Ouch, right? That missing letter definitely hurts. But how about a typo that accidentally gives away an entire car dealership? Also in 2007, a direct mail marketing company hired by a Honda dealership in Roswell, New Mexico, was supposed to print 50,000 scratch-off tickets. There was supposed to be just one grand prize winner for $1,000. Instead, a typo made all 50,000 tickets grand prize winners. Yep, the dealership manager caught the error, but only after 30,000 tickets had already been mailed out. This put them on the hook for $30 million, which very quickly scaled to a potential $50 million disaster. They frantically had to settle this massive PR nightmare by offering $5 Walmart gift cards to the winners.
But the ultimate typo? That happened on the Tokyo Stock Exchange in December 2005. The Japanese brokerage firm Mizuho Securities was supposed to sell one single share of a company called JCOM for 610,000 yen. At the time, that was roughly $5,000. But a broker completely flipped the numbers, actually flipped them. They listed 610,000 shares for exactly 1 yen each. That's 41 times the actual available stock of the entire company being sold for less than a penny a piece. Mizuho tried to cancel the order instantly, but the exchange's system flat out refused to cancel the erroneous transaction.
By the time the trading day ended, Mizuho had scrambled to buy back whatever they could, but that single keystroke resulted in a massive 40.7 billion yen loss. To put that into perspective, that's about $372 million today. Mizuho actually sued the Tokyo Stock Exchange for allowing such an impossible order to go through unchallenged. They asked for 41.5 billion yen, but the courts only awarded them a quarter of that. Talk about the ultimate reason to triple-check your work, right?
Moving on to Section 2. Massive maritime mishaps. Billions lost at sea.
So when we scale up from tiny typos on a keyboard to massive logistical blunders on the open ocean, the costs multiply exponentially. Take the Ever Given in 2021. The captain's decision to risk steering that 1,312-foot behemoth through the tiny Suez Canal in poor weather and high winds? Well, it got wedged, and that blocked global trade to the tune of $32.4 billion. Similarly, trying to keep a tight schedule pushed the Owen Apus into a brutal Pacific storm in 2020, washing $200 million in cargo right away into the sea. But maybe the most frustrating error happened with the MV Tricolor, which sank with $140 million in luxury cars.
The thing is, the sinking of the Tricolor wasn't some unavoidable act of nature. It was a total cascade of basic communication failures. Picture this. It's a foggy December morning in 2002, and 3 ships are navigating a super busy English channel. The Kariba speeds up to overtake the 55,000-ton Tricolor, but an understaffed third ship, the Clary, is passing right in front of them. Now, in the agonizing 15 minutes leading up to the collision, not a single one of these 3 massive vessels used their foghorns. Not one. Nobody used the radio. Operating in total silence and blindness, the Kariba rammed the Tricolor, capsizing it. It took a $40 million salvage operation to literally slice the ship into 9 sections with a giant cutting wire just to pull the wreckage out of the water.
All right, Section 3. Ignoring the warning signs when experts are silenced.
You know, disasters rarely just happen out of the blue. They're frequently preceded by desperate warnings from experts that leadership willfully ignores, usually to save time or save face. The 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster is a really chilling example of this. When a magnitude 9 earthquake struck, the systems actually worked perfectly. They shut down the reactors. But the backup diesel generators needed to keep those extremely hot cores cool. They were positioned in low-lying areas. A 46-foot wave wiped out 31 of the 33 generators, leading to a massive meltdown over the next 6 days that released 980 petabecquerels of radiation. But here's the real kicker. Scientists had explicitly warned the Tokyo Electric Power Company well in advance that their generators were vulnerable to large tsunamis. The operators just ignored the warnings, favoring their own internal data that claimed such a wave was impossible. That ignored warning cost a $2.2 billion plant and triggered a 30-year, $76 billion cleanup.
This exact same dynamic played out in the January 1986 Space Shuttle Challenger tragedy. An engineer named Alan McDonald explicitly refused to approve the rocket for launch. He knew that the record low temperatures that morning would compromise the rubber O-rings meant to keep pressurized gases from escaping the boosters. But NASA, who was heavily pressured to maintain a grueling schedule of 24 missions a year, chose not to listen to McDonald's warning. Just 73 seconds into the flight, those O-rings failed, leading to structural failure and a catastrophic explosion on live television, tragically taking the lives of all 7 crew members.
Now, obviously, the human cost of the Challenger disaster is completely immeasurable. But purely from a financial standpoint, the cost of the oversight was staggering. The original rocket cost about $1.5 billion to develop, and replacing the shuttle while fixing the myriad of design flaws cost another $3.2 billion. When you adjust all of this for inflation today, NASA's refusal to listen to their own engineer resulted in a $24.5 billion mistake.
And we still see warnings ignored today with massive financial consequences. Look at San Francisco's Millennium Tower. Completed in 2009, residents quickly bought up over $100 million in luxury condos. But city building inspectors knew a really crucial detail. The 58-story tower wasn't built into solid bedrock. It was built into deep, dense sand. They let residents move in anyway. 2 years later, nearby construction dewatered the area, which compressed that sand. By 2018, the building was sinking and leaning so badly that windows were literally popping out under the pressure. The initial fix was estimated at $100 million, but a massive 52-pile fix caused complications that have worsened the building's tilt to an alarming 26 inches today. Meaning, this ignored soil data might turn a luxury high-rise into a $500 million fixer-upper.
Finally, Section 4. Explosive negligence, the ultimate price of carelessness.
In this final chapter, we're looking at scenarios where incredibly simple rules were bypassed, resulting in sudden, devastating, and landscape-altering consequences. Sometimes it's a momentary lapse in judgment, like at Belgium's Florence Air Base in 2018. A mechanic was working on an F-16 in a hangar when they accidentally pushed the wrong button. That button fired the jet's 20mm Vulcan cannon. Now, a single round for this cannon cost just $27, but those accidentally fired bullets instantly struck a second F-16 that was refueling nearby. This highly flammable situation erupted into a blaze that completely destroyed the $18 million aircraft and severely damaged another. In just a matter of seconds, a $27 mistake turned into a $27 million disaster, all because a safety protocol was seemingly bypassed.
But when bureaucratic negligence scales up, the results are literally earth-shattering. Look at the August 2015 Tianjin blast in China. Officials completely ignored regulations requiring hazardous chemicals to be stored at least 1 kilometer from public buildings. When the improperly stored sodium cyanide and nitrates caught fire, it resulted in a blast with a force of 280 tons of TNT. It triggered massive earthquakes and completely incinerated 26,000 brand-new cars at the nearby port. And yet, unbelievably, 5 years later in August 2020, officials in Beirut, Lebanon made the exact same mistake, but even worse. They left 3,000 tons of highly explosive confiscated ammonium nitrate sitting improperly in a warehouse for 6 years. The resulting 1.1 kiloton explosion leveled buildings, stripped cladding, and left 300,000 people homeless. If you tally up the staggering financial toll of this systemic ignorance, it is almost impossible to comprehend. The Tianjin explosion required $10 billion to cover supply chain disruptions, compensation, and 130% government property buyback for the ruined homes. Plus, 49 officials were jailed. And the Beirut blast? That was even more devastating, causing an estimated $15 billion in economic damages to the country. That is $25 billion collectively, wiped out entirely because officials couldn't be bothered to store literal explosives safely. From a single misplaced keystroke wiping out $500,000 to bypass safety checks triggering nuclear meltdowns and leveling entire cities, human history is fundamentally shaped by these micro-errors cascading into macro consequences. The next time you make a mistake, honestly, you can take some comfort in the fact that it probably won't cost $1 billion. But it really should remind us just how fragile our complex systems are when simple rules are ignored.
So I want to leave you with a question to evaluate everything we've looked at today. Which of these historic mistakes do you think was the most easily avoidable? Was it the maritime communications, the ignored engineering warnings, or the improperly stored chemicals? Think it over, dive deeper into the sources, and thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you on the next one.